All right, good weekend for sure of sports. I mean, I wish the Seahawks would have won, and I wish the Titans would have won, but that's part of it. That was about it, though, for me. It's not like that didn't linger on me by any stretch. I guess when you've been doing this for 20 years, it's somebody wins, somebody loses, and we move on to the next thing, which is tonight. Tonight, the Natty, Bama, Roll Tide, Paul. Bama and Ohio State tonight in Miami. So, will Saban get his 7th or Ryan Day get his 1st? Will Waddle play? Out of bounds, 105.9 The Zone, WRKS, ESPN. SEC Insider Hit this morning is brought to you by Farm Bureau Insurance. If you want to save, go with your local Farm Bureau insurance agent. Bundle your auto and home. Hit favorites.com, get a quote. It's snowing, you don't have anything else to do. Pour a cup of coffee or a Dr. Pepper, boom. Bundle your auto and home and save with your local Farm Bureau insurance agent. We'll have Steve Robertson on the show at 7:35 today. Steve Robertson, 7:35, and Makai Polk. Did I say that right? Makai Polk,
I think
committed
that's right.
to Mississippi State from Cal, Berkeley. Did you
sophomore wide receiver?
Did you think about going to Cal Berkeley?
I did not.
Okay.
I did not. The farthest.
I mean, you're kind of weird. I could see you getting into that.
farthest west I went was TCU and I guess
Texas.
Yeah, Texas. That kind of. I did look at Colorado, but I didn't ever go up there for a visit. I did get accepted there though.
You got accepted to Boulder.
Yeah, it would have been sweet, but I think that would have been a bad idea.
All
that would have
weird,
been a bad idea.
Weird and fun. Yeah, that wouldn't have worked.
I mean, I went to LSU. That was a bad idea too, but it's fine. We made it.
We made it. All right.
As Mike Leach says, I learned a lot of lessons there.
Don't do it anymore.
That's still the best. Oh, man. Well, that's the best. And, we're playing the game tonight, Blake. After the worst thing to ever happen in college football, the Tulsa MSU fight.
Yeah.
Can you believe that we're playing the Nat? I mean, somebody needs to get Kirk Herbstreit on the phone and let him know that we are playing the national championship game last night after he went total snowflake a couple of weeks ago.
Yeah. I mean, it's remarkable
I just
how
want
that
to make
works.
sure that we all know that.
Yeah.
We are going to play the Natty tonight, baby. Bama and Ohio State.
Moment of silence for all the lives lost at Tulsa, Mississippi State.
Live in the Bank Plus studio, Steve Robertson coming up here in just a second. MSU won a basketball game. I don't know how many of you care about college basketball. Tough read there. It's more Mississippi State than Ole Miss, but that's still not a lot. But you got to give Ben Howland credit. I mean, see, Blake disagrees, and I'm right on this. Ben Howland has done a really good job.
I think that.
When you look at really who Mississippi State is, when you look at the talent that is produced in this state and the surrounding states, I mean, look, starting with the 2016-2017 season, Blake, Mississippi State has finished 12th, 7th, 6th, and 4th in the SEC.
It's improvement.
And, that's a pretty good direction in a state that produces very few high D1 players. In fact, the kind of D1 player that this state usually produces is what you see with DJ Stewart, a young man that it takes a little time. He redshirted. He played last year. His game was still, not refined, not sold. You can get a Jeffrey Simmons and A.J. Brown as true freshmen that, man, they contribute, and you do every now and then in basketball, I get it. But they contribute, and I mean they start or play, 80% of the first team snaps. But it's difficult considering kind of how we are made up in this state and the surrounding states. So I think he's done a good job. And I also think that the women's program set unrealistic expectations. And I don't think that Ben is a promoter. He's not a promoter at all.
Mm-mm.
And Rick Stansberry was a promoter. And there was a love affair with Rick, kind of like Ole Miss with Hugh. And so, we were around Stansberry all the time. And Rick could bring you in, much like free, and just make you feel like the most important person in the room. And he promoted the program. And he had a pretty big inner circle. That's just not who Howland is. So I think he's done a really good job. I think that the Mississippi State fan base, a lot of them inflate who they are and what they are in basketball. And I think DJ Stewart is the typical Mississippi prospect. Needs an enormous amount of development and time in the weight room and on the court, and then he becomes a good player. A lot of those guys, though, transfer because they're so highly recruited. Like the highly recruited guys aren't as good as they're supposed to be, Malik and so on. But this guy was not in that space. Neither was Q. But, of course, Q played day one. But I think DJ Stewart is the prospect from the state of Mississippi. Red shirt, then played some last year, and now really coming into his own in his third year. We're going to welcome in Steve Robertson, Hail State Insider, genespage.com. 247 Sports. Steve joins us on the Parrish Canebrake Brewing guest line. Steve, let's start with the wide receiver from Cal Berkeley, Makai Polk. Is that it? Tell me about him. What's going on?
Yeah, he's originally out of El Cerrito High School there nearby in the valley there. And, a guy that has played the last 2 years, played as a true freshman. And, this year they only played 4 games at Cal. He started 2 of them. An electric guy. I mean, a long, lean receiver that can elevate, and also with that tunnel screen, he's the guy that can navigate traffic and really break into the open field. And, Mike Leach likes to run that tunnel screen, and, sometimes you can block it up and sometimes you can't, but he's the guy that's a little bit of an eraser if you make a mistake. It's because he is so skilled in the open field. But this is a guy that's got 3 years of eligibility to play. He's only played the 2, obviously, and hadn't had the benefit of a redshirt year. So when this NCAA one-time transfer rule is enacted, and we expect that to happen here in the next few weeks. There was some discussion last week that it would be approved this week. Now I'm told that's been pushed back a little bit as they clean up some of the language. But that's going to happen, which will enable him to be able to play this year. So we expect him to be on the field in maroon and white this fall.
Will it happen? Will he enroll in the spring or June 1?
I'm trying to get some clarification on that. He hadn't been very responsive. We've reached out to try to get some clarity on that. But, school starts at Mississippi State today. And so ideally you'd like to have this thing done and let him get here before the drop ad date. And so, I think the thinking is because he was a full qualifier out of high school, there's nothing to inhibit him from making the transfer now. We're just trying to get some confirmation on when we should expect him to arrive on campus.
All right. And so the expectations for him is to start or play day one, right?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, he'll be in the rotation from day one. And I'll tell you, I don't know that Mississippi State has anybody quite like him. Everybody always asks for, player-to-player comparisons. I think he kind of has his own niche within this scheme. He's not like Austin Williams. He's not that 7-yard curl guy that can go get a first down for you in that respect. I think that he's a guy that's going to make plays really outside the numbers a lot more. I don't know that he's quite as thick as Malik Heath, but I think he's probably built a little more like Osiris Mitchell, not quite as lengthy, but I think athletically he's more advanced than Osiris.
Now, all right, so they went after another dude, and that didn't work out, and then they moved on Makai Polk. Walk me through what happened the last 3 or 4 days.
Okay, Trey Walker's who you're referring out of San Jose State, an explosive wide receiver there. And I understand he's no longer in school there at San Jose State, or he's no longer within the football program at San Jose State. So the SEC will not allow a 1-year transfer that is not a graduate. And so if you're a grad transfer, yeah, you come on and spend your last year in the SEC and, get your advanced degree and then hopefully go on and play in the National Football League. But Walker is not a graduate. And I understand that it's going to take some time in order for him to be a graduate. We're talking could be 2 semesters. And so that complicates things, and it doesn't allow him to kind of get in under the SEC rule. Now, the casual fan would say, well, Steve, if this is going to happen with the NCAA one-time transfer, why wouldn't he be subject to that? Well, I'm told the SEC rule is going to remain in place. They're not going to immediately make a change to that rule because what they're trying to avoid is having these people that don't have the degree progress requirements, that are not going to graduate someday, basically come to the SEC late, is a bit of a dumping ground to kind of figure out a way to the National Football League. And so if you're not a graduate, you can't be a one-year transfer to an SEC school. You have to have multiple years of eligibility remaining.
Okay. All right. And so that's why this worked for Mekhi Polk. You just said he's got 3 years of eligibility left.
Absolutely. Yeah, he's got 4 years to play 3. So let's say just, for some unbeknown reason, let's say that this one-time transfer rule doesn't go into play this year. Well, then he could take the redshirt year and still have 3 years to play. Well, where if you bring in Trey Walker and all of a sudden this transfer legislation doesn't come to fruition this year, well, now all of a sudden he's stuck. He's here. Mississippi State has to honor the scholarship against the benefit of him on the football field. So that's not a good deal for anybody. And so that's one of the reasons you have that rule. But in order to transfer into the SEC, unless you are a grad transfer, you must have multiple years of eligibility remaining.
Okay. All right. So Steve Robertson, 247 Sports, genespage.com, Hail State Insider on the Miller Lite guest line, talking Hail State football right now. So where does that leave Leach and the staff as far as what other work they may want to do in the transfer portal going forward?
Well, you got 4 spots remaining. There are 26 spots in the Mississippi State signing class for 2021. You got your 25 for the calendar year, but there was still an initial grant available for 2020, so they used that in December. So they have the ability to sign 26 for this class. Now, with 22 people in, there are 4 spots remaining. One of those earmarked for Louisville high school defensive end Ty Cooper, and I'm told that could happen as early as today. We do believe Mississippi State's in a great position there. And listen, go ahead and save all the social media commentary. I understand nothing is final until National Signing Day, but he has not made a verbal commitment at any point through his recruitment, so that would be very significant. Then that takes up your final spot on the defensive line. The final 3 spots are going to be for defensive backs. They really like C.J. Johnson, it appears, from French Camp Academy. No guarantee you get him, but you like where State sits today. But you got to go out and get a couple guys out of the portal, probably a corner and a safety that can come in and play next year. That's where I think State's biggest needs are, not only in a recruiting class, but really on the field next year, is shoring up that secondary. You feel really good about what you have in your starting corners, but you got Fred Peters and C.J. Morgan coming back, and listen, we don't know what their health situation is going to be, but you want to add another player at corner and at safety to kind of give that unit some depth.
Steve Robertson on the Out of Bounds Show, ESPN 105.9 The Zone. Okay, so football, 4 spots left, couple of high schoolers you just referenced, and maybe a couple of will they be in the market for all right, we have a text here. Will Mississippi State will they be in the market for a defensive lineman? I'm sorry, in the transfer, not a Ty Cooper, in the transfer portal.
Yeah, it's not expected. I mean, of course, if a difference maker comes along, you can always recalibrate. But as of now, no, they're not expecting it. I know a lot of people got excited when they saw Big Cat from Auburn was in the transfer portal and thinking, you know what, if you could get him with the defensive end issues you have at Mississippi State, that would clear up some issues. But I haven't heard of any plans about State looking to take a pass rusher from the transfer portal. But again, you've got some room to maneuver there. So if a guy comes along it's too good to pass on, they could certainly go in that direction. But at this point, I haven't heard that's the path they'll take.
Have you followed – I want to switch gears with you just for a second. Have you followed this Tennessee Jeremy Pruitt thing? And it looks like
Oh, absolutely. Yeah.
okay, so it looks like, and you can pick up where I leave off here. It looks like they're trying to get to a point in the investigation where they can fire him with cause. Is that the way you're reading the tea leaves, or what are you hearing?
I don't know if that's their agenda, but I think that's ultimately what's going to happen. And what's incredible about this, Bo, and I've talked to probably half a dozen people that have, some sense of knowledge about this whole thing, is that this really is an investigation that originated with the Tennessee compliance department. A lot of times, the NCAA hears something or whatever, and then it's a joint investigation with the school and the NCAA. But I understand this actually did originate in the compliance department because of some comments that were made by, family members of players. And so it gets to compliance. They begin to dig into this thing. It appears there is an issue. And now they've gone out and hired two high-profile, high-dollar lawyers for the NCAA, Mike Glazier being one of them. That's when your school hires Mike Glazier, you're in trouble. That's just everybody kind of understands that. That's kind of like when back in the day when you hired Robert Kardashian or somebody like that, when you were in trouble, the high-priced Hollywood lawyers. That's kind of who Mike Glazier is. But this Tennessee thing, there are allegations, not just on recruiting, but there are allegations with current players. They're being provided benefits, and their families provided hotel rooms and meals and things of that nature so they could watch their kids play. And so the benefits didn't just end on signing day. They continued throughout the student-athlete experience there. And I understand it's multiple players and multiple classes. That's what the allegations look like. And if this happened with full knowledge of the coaching staff, I don't think there's any question that entire group is gone.
Wow. Did you pick this up on Friday? I know you're doing other things, but Dan Patrick dropped that next in the on-deck circle of being investigated is Georgia. And I quote, I was told, and I know Dan's not a college football insider, but he's got great connections, and he may be wrong here. Here's his quote. I was told Georgia got sloppy this year in recruiting, or maybe it's been in a couple of years, but the NCAA is looking at Georgia as well. Have you heard anything about that, Steve?
That's the first I had heard of it. I've talked to a couple people, and they're kind of like, well, we'll see. There's always allegations out there when you're in the SEC, especially when you're a team that wins consistently. And I know that the relationship between Florida and Georgia is especially contentious. But I was told that Georgia actually turned in Tennessee for some potential tampering allegations, and we've had some experience with that here in the state of Mississippi in the past 12 months. But when you begin to look at this Tennessee experience, how crazy it all is, then if you had that on top of it, you get tampering allegations, you get recruiting allegations, you get infamous benefits to players and families allegations. This could really steamroll in a hurry. And when you look at the way the league is right now, Florida's now on probation. LSU's got major issues down there. They're facing probation in two sports and lack of institutional